Welcome back. Delighted to say that David Yates and I have been joined by a man who is trying to revolutionise the concept of racehorse ownership, and he's making a pretty fair stab at it as well. Off to Longchamp last week with a filly, and she very, very nearly lowered the colours of the great Zaragana. She's called She's Perfect, and she's bound for classic glory next. Basher Watts is his name, and here he is. Basher, good to see you.
Thanks for having me on. I'm aware I might be the first ever person to wear white trainers on the sofa, but thanks for having me.
Anything is allowed in this studio.
The new generation.
Exactly. Well, you are wearing a beautifully tied tie, a very crisp shirt, a lovely watch, your branded gilet.
Absolutely.
Have you not seen Neil Channing on this?
Basher.
Yes.
Is not your real name.
It's not.
You were born James Watts.
Oh, you've started off with that, Nick. No one knows that, so that's all I'm going to be called from now on. But there we go. We'll leave with Basher, though.
So where did Basher come from? Were you Basher as a toddler? Were you Basher to your parents?
As soon as I could start walking, I think I was bumping into things, and my great-granddad was like, he's going to be a Basher when he grows up, and it's just stuck.
And it started all the way through school?
Yeah.
All your friends knew you as Basher?
No one even... Like, Charlie Fellows doesn't even know my name's James.
Oh, God, I hope he's not watching.
Yeah, there you go. It's ruined it. So thanks for that start, Nick.
But the great thing is, having a memorable name is a good start.
Of course, good branding.
No one would remember James Watts, would they? But they all remember Basher Watts.
That's it.
Could be tricky if you sort of walk into, in your teens, going to school and saying, I'm Basher.
Well, that's it.
As I said, I'm the Basher around here, mate.
That's true.
We'll see who's the Basher.
I'll back down.
So tell me about little Basher.
Yeah.
And what life was like growing up, where you grew up and where'd you come from?
Sure, so based in Norfolk. And funnily enough, I have no horse background whatsoever. So none of my family are interested in horse racing.
Sort of Norfolk, coast Norfolk, or
sort of in between like Norwich and Kings Lynn, so not far from Fakenham.
Yeah, very near Fakenham.
Thursford Christmas Spectacular would be one of your your annual visits. I'm
yours
sure.
as well. Yours as well.
Used to be, yeah. My nephew played in it for a few years.
There you go.
Sat next to Chris Biggins.
You did. Yes. Good friend of yours.
Yeah.
Yeah. Grew up around Norwich. And just the first memory I have of going racing, I was lucky enough to go to the Guineas in 2011, where Frankel won.
What a start!
Yeah, and then the first bet I can remember, I had a tenner on Blue Bunting at 22-1, and after that I was like, this is the sport for me.
I'm not surprised.
Yeah, that's it. So
what a weekend!
Oh, it's fantastic. And I have like a bit of like a obsessive personality. If I like something, I'm diving into it, and
racing's very well suited to personalities like that, isn't it?
Sure.
Because there's an awful lot to dive into.
Yeah, for sure. Say if you're a massive football fan, the furthest you can really go is being a season ticket holder. You can be a racing fan, and you could be stood, next to the Godolphins or the Ballydoyles as an owner. So I think for me, it's the best sport in the world, and it's that dream is a drug, and I'm certainly hooked on it.
So how old were you, Frankel's Guineas, in 2011?
Well, I was 16.
OK. So you still had a little way to go before you fully knew what you were going to do.
Yeah.
Were there other things that you were considering at the time? If you hadn't ended up really immersing yourself in racing, what would you have been doing?
What, in terms of like a hobby?
Anything, life, the universe, everything.
So, I mean, I went to university, studied business there, got like a graduate job for...
Did you always have quite a commercial mind? Was that, when you were a kid, were you quite entrepreneurial?
Very much so. My mum and dad own their own, businesses. My grandparents have as well. So I've always wanted to work for myself. So I had like a graduate job for a year or two, and I thought, life's too short to be something you don't enjoy. So I went and worked at Huntingdon Racecourse for about 2 years doing their marketing. Fabulous. I drove 600 miles a week to go there. I lived in Coventry at the time. And yeah, it was really interesting to see that side of the game, like behind the scenes, because you just go and see the thrills on this, on a race day, let alone, when for 4 months of the year in the summer there's no racing because it's obviously a national hunt track. And then from that, I actually ran my own catering company for about 6 or 7 years. And
not straightforward.
Not straightforward, no. And I'm very much I'm very impulsive. If I want to do something, I'm going to do it. I remember actually I was at Huntingdon.
So what were you doing? Was this events catering?
Exactly that. So we were mobile. So we'd go and do like weddings and festivals and stuff like that. So I actually used to be at Newmarket Newmarket nights with a couple catering units and stuff.
That must have been a serious learning experience.
For sure. It's all good life experience. And I'm a massive believer in fate. Like, everything happens for a reason. And then, then I started to get into racehorse ownership just through syndicates. So the first ever horse I had was Josh Stacey's Millennium Racing Club.
Yeah.
So I had like 1% in her. And
Good friend and colleague of ours.
Yeah,
Josh.
lovely guy, Josh. I just had a couple 1% shares in horses. Absolutely loved it. And it was only just before the festival 2 years ago that I started posting content online. I just thought, why not? I enjoy it. And for me, and one thing I'm trying to achieve is I find it really hard to find like-minded racing fans.
Go on.
So, like, say, for example, if you stop 100 lads in the street and ask them who won the Premier League last year, I guarantee you 90 of them would be able to tell you Man City. If you said the next 100 lads who won the Gold Cup last year, I think you'd be lucky to find 5. So, like, trying to find friends that on a Saturday want to go to Haydock or something and travel, and you might go there and draw a blank and it costs you a few quid, is hard. So I thought let's try posting some content out there, and hopefully I can just. There was no aim about it. I thought let's just try and connect with some people that love the game like I do, and from there.
So what were you expecting?
Nothing.
Realistically?
Honestly, nothing.
And what was the first bit of content that got people going, okay, I identify with this guy, I like him, I want to chat with him more?
So I mean, my most popular series is a series called An Honest Day's Punting.
Yeah.
So I will go there and I will show the winners and the losers. There's a lot of things you'll see online with.
And you're not pretending to have 10 grand in cash or something and land in a helicopter or whatever.
Exactly. I think that's why it's so popular, because you will see someone with 10, 20 grand cash putting a bet on, which is fine if you've got the money to do that.
I'm just no one has,
an honest punter, 50 quid on a race or whatever, and I always show my stakes, and I will put a video up where I've gone to Fakenham on New Year's Day, started the year off in the worst possible start, drawn a blank, but that's the game. That is the reality of the sport, and I think a lot of people like that. That's how a lot of people sort of came to find me and sort of trusted me in a little sort of way.
Because they don't think you're faking it.
Exactly that. And they can see my passion for the game way before I even started doing my own syndicates.
And of course, if you start doing this, you know what's next. You make a rod for your own back as well. You have to carry on.
Exactly.
And then did you find you were still enjoying it when you kept doing it and you kept getting the interaction from other people?
100%, because, I don't want it to sound like arrogant or anything like that, but I get people come up to me at the races now and want to have a chat with me about my content, my horses, which is just, I find that mind-boggling. So, if someone's going to come up and want to have a chat with me, the least I can do is have a chat with them. So that just puts rocket fuel in the fire to make it even bigger and better. And
now there are hundreds of people who've thought, right, I'm quite a good front person. I'm not saying you would ever say this.
Yeah.
But you think I'm quite a good front person. People identify with me. I'd like to get a group of people together, and I would like to make a syndicate, and I'd like to make an impact. It's quite a long way from having all of those thoughts to being standing in the paddock at Longchamp before a stakes race next to Princess Zahra Aga Khan.
Yeah.
So how did that journey manifest itself?
So, as I said, I had shares in horses myself through a syndicate, and I would post an honest day as a racehorse owner. So, we get there 3 hours before, see the horse get saddled up. We're in the parade ring. This is what we think about the chances. The chat with the jockey, and I had loads of people come and speak to me and say, Bash, I'd love to be part of a syndicate. Who do you recommend? How do I find, what syndicate is best? And it's always been a dream of mine to have my own horse and my own syndicate. So I just put a video out there and put the feelers out there and said, I'd love to do it. It's been a dream of mine. If anyone would be interested, let me know. And we actually went and did a catering event. And as I came out, I had probably 50 messages of people saying, Bash, I would support you and would like to get involved. And then, from there, we got people. And as you can see, here we are at Longchamp last week with King Shuey, Charlie, and there was 22 of us out there. It was the best day of my life by a mile.
How many people did you need to really get a critical mass?
It wasn't so much how many people do I need. It was more a case of the money.
Yeah.
I didn't have the money up front. So I put it out there, and you sort of have to funnel a lot of people through. A lot of people are interested, but actually willing to give you their well-earned cash. I think there's about 8 people involved in my first horse. So there was a guy called the Racing Guru that took 35%. So I got big thanks to him. Without him, I might not be.
Because you've got
100%.
You've got somebody there who's probably got the means to have
for sure
horses on their own.
Yeah, exactly that.
And a few of them.
Exactly that. And I found Believe the Storm in Ireland. It's funny when you look at it. I'm a big truster in people. Like I feel like I can judge them, and you've got my trust. I trust easily. And we actually went on a Irish national stud tour for my friends stag do. And it was when we had a private tour, and the guy was saying, Bash, are you into the breeding or anything? And I took down his number. And like 6 months, I think it was just after Cheltenham, I said, I need to own a horse. Can you let me know if you ever hear of anything special? Looking at it now, that's magic to somebody's ears. Do you know what I mean? I've got this new English guy that wants to buy a horse. Send him whatever. But I trusted the guy, and I got introduced to a guy called Colm who had Believe the Storm. And he was 30 grand, so I knew I needed about 22 to be able to go through with it. So I was very conscious. I don't want to get in above my head. The training costs are a lot of money. So I waited until we had the pool of people ready, got the money, bought him, and that was Royal Ascot Week 2 years ago. Was
there an element of it that was, I mean this in a positive way, but somewhat frightening? Because the minute you actually start receiving other people's money and then have to start spending it, how squeaky bum was that?
Honestly, not at all, because it was a dream I've always had, and I'm very much like, I'm a bit of like an adrenaline junkie. I love the buzz and the thrill. So as soon as I got it, I was like, this is go time. We're going to get the horse. He'll be out in 8 weeks. He's going to win on debut. We bought him in June.
I feel like you're one of these people, the people who manifest.
Oh, 100%.
I feel like you're one of these people who've manifested their way into the paddock at Longchamp.
Massively. And the funny thing, we'll get on to She's Perfect, or Sue as we call her. She, and this is why it means so much, she ran on the 25th of September last year. Every single day since then, you're planning out her next run. So when it then comes down to it, I get emotional in my videos because it means so much. But that's that, like, you're waiting 5 months, and when the horse goes and the plan comes to fruition, it's brilliant.
OK, so...
The Irish national stud on a...
Yeah, that's it.
Have you heard of Amsterdam?
Yeah, I have. I have, actually. I think it was Irish Champions weekend we went out for. Because Faheen and Hurricane Fly were my stable horses. They were like my first love of horses, especially on the jumps. And they were both there. My friend, who unfortunately is no longer with us, he loved them as well. So we're going to go and see them. So.
That's interesting in itself, isn't it? Because people always say, what is the power of having retired racehorses at somewhere like the Irish National Stud, and drawing people in and sort of being involved a little bit with the museum in Newmarket. When we had big bucks there, the amount of people that would come and sort of trying to convince people to allow some of these ex-racehorses to be seen by more of the public. It has a very compelling effect.
100%. We were there with the Rich Ritchie scarf and the Hurricane Fly scarf. So to be able to, for racing fans, they're the Ronaldos.
So you touch on something there. You touch on a sporting analogy with Ronaldo, but also the identity, the team identity with the Rich Ritchie scarf. You're quite reasonably well branded. I mean, not gaudily. You're beautifully dressed, but there is an element of creating a team, creating a Basher Watts team.
Yeah.
How much response do you get from your membership to that kind of concept?
Yeah, I think it's more. Again, I don't want this to come across, but people buy into me.
You're among friends here, don't worry.
Yeah, people buy into me. Do you know, there's so many amazing syndicates out there. So why me, not someone else? I think it's just through posting content and people enjoy my content that they've bought into me and they trust me. That's actually a bit of a stumbling block when I speak to people, is they've had like a poor experience in the past.
But if they're finishing out the back of the telly and people are paying through the nose, they could like you as much as...
Very true.
And it's not going to sustain. Yeah. So you have to... So for all your compelling and engaging personality, you know full well that you're going to be judged on your results.
Yeah, 100%. And that is obviously the challenge. You can't control how the horse runs. We have a horse called Al Mudafa, and he works like a group horse. He'll work with She's Perfect. He gets to the track and he doesn't want to do it yet. We will get there with him. But this is what I always try and say to the owners. So I'll have an owners morning every sort of 4 to 5 weeks at the yard, bring all the friends and family. I try and do as much as I can. And I think it's so crucial, especially with how the prize money is in England. People are getting involved knowing you'll be very lucky to get a financial return. I always try and say, treat it like a golf membership. You're getting involved for the love and the experience. So like when we go there, we'll try and, you know, get a box or try and do as much as I can where people will get enjoyment regardless of how the horse runs.
So are you putting your own hard yards in to enhance the experience?
100%.
So would you spend a bit more, take a bit more out of your pot to buy a box
100%.
or work with the racecourses?
Yeah, for sure.
And who are the best racecourses to deal with?
Oh, that's a tricky question.
But I've asked it in a nice way, so you don't have to throw anybody under the bus.
You have. I would say the Arena Racing Company have been great, purely because we can get 20 syndicate badges. We might not get a meal, fine. We just want to be able to go there.
At all their courses?
At all their courses. Yeah. And I think this is a major, if I said there's one thing from my point of view which we need to address and change, let people in the parade ring. You know, I think there's nothing more sorry than seeing an empty parade ring on a Monday night. You know, we went with Holy Fire. She ran in a 0 to 70 at Newcastle on a Monday night before Christmas. We had 26 people there for her. And for me, it's just a simple thing. You know, we don't want a meal and all, you know, which I get, you know, costs a lot and they have certain, you know, only amount of tables. But let people go in the ring. Have a look at a parade ring and say, well, safely we can fit 150 people in here. We've only got 10 runners. These people haven't got any runners yet. Have as many people as what you want. Do you know what I mean? Like, so that for me is a massive thing. Just to get people in the parade ring. And, you know, the beautiful thing about my syndicate, I would say about 80% of people, this is the first ever experience they've had of owning a horse.
Have you been surprised by the makeup of your syndicate? So I'm guessing what you imagined in your head was, so how many people are in the...
So all in total...
Total?
So I have 6 horses, there's about 300 owners.
Right, so I'd imagine you were probably anticipating 299 Basher Watts. Basher Wattses.
Yeah.
I bet that's not what you've got.
No, not at all. But I think that's the beauty.
Have you got 8s to 80s?
Oh, yeah. I've got people 18 years old and I've got some mature people, we'll put it that way. But I think that just adds the beautiful element. And honestly, hand on heart, if I could afford to own all my horses outright by myself, I wouldn't do it. Like you saw the videos at Longchamp, there was 22 of us. We had the best day ever because you all love this horse. You've all got that shared interest. And it was like the social side of it is just fantastic. I absolutely love it. So
where does the juggernaut ultimately find itself? Because it's clearly building up some steam.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm just like, you know, even in the last 2 weeks, it's been a roller coaster. I've never had a reporter ring me up and want to do an interview. I'm now sat here on Luck on Sunday, so I'm strapped in, and who knows where it will take us, especially if 3 weeks today we can go one better. But
okay, so you head to Longchamp for the Pouliche.
Yeah.
Realistically, what are you expecting?
A big run and a fantastic day. Like if we're actually going to look at it, I was trying to say to people the magnitude of what we're doing. So she's perfect. We call her Sue. We pay 50,000 for her.
Why did you buy her? So
big shout out to William Douglas Bloodstock, who is Charlie Fellowes' Bloodstock agent. Fantastic guy. And the funny story is, I'm, as I said, big believer in fate. I said to Charlie, I'd had Believe the Storm for about a year. He hadn't run. And I had the demand, and I said, I want to buy another horse. We went to the TAT sales with about a 30 grand budget. To get
yearling sale? Or
no, horse in training.
Horse in training.
Horse in training sale. And Charlie said, you know, we've got a list of about 8 horses, me, Charlie, and Will. We went, you know, vetted them, looked at them all. You should get these for 30 grand. If they go for more, then they're not the right horse. We didn't manage to get them. We then went to the Arcana breeds up sale. I was at home. I'd been racing at, I think it was Chester. And again, we had a list of about 8 horses within my budget of 30 grand. Mm-hmm. And again, you should be able to get these, Bash. And I'm sat there watching the sale live, and this, you know, what we thought we could get for 30 is going for 65, 70, 50. And Charlie just said, this is the weirdest sale I've ever seen. Let's leave it. Fine. I'm driving down to Warwick races, and I get a call from Charlie. He said, I cannot believe it. There's a beautiful Sioux Nation filly who I didn't even consider for you because we thought she'd go for 100 grand plus. She's unsold in the ring for 60 grand. I can get her for 50. Oh, okay. And he's like, you know, Charlie's giving me the sales pitch. Bash, I know it's nearly double what you want to pay. I cannot explain how much of a good buy this looks. She breathes well. She looks fantastic. So let's do it. So we bought her, and she should have sold for well over 100 grand. Like the same consigners had a lovely horse, Koto de Casa, another Sioux Nation filly, which sold for like 270 grand a couple of weeks later. And obviously we look closely matched, but I feel like we were destined to have her.
Yeah.
So.
And the truth of it is, you were probably the only people who wanted her.
Yeah.
Because sometimes they just fall through the cracks.
Yeah,
like
that's
that.
it.
They can have all the right credentials, but everybody's converging around the same 2 or 3 horses.
Yeah, sure. It was just bizarre. And how the name came about. She then came back from France. It's
great name.
The first time I'd seen her, and me and Charlie stood there, and he's like, "Do you know what? She's bigger than what I remember, actually." He was like, look how she stands, look how she holds herself. And he was like, "Oh, she's perfect." I was like, "She's perfect." And we just looked at each other. BHA name finder. I was like, "Done. She's perfect." And so far, she's living up to her name. So.
Now, have you sorted out the jockey situation in France? Because it looks as though your rider is going to be taken for Zanzoon, the win winner in the Pouliche.
Yes, which puts a spanner in the works because King.
Very inconsiderate of Gosden, wasn't
Mr.
it?
Gosden.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we call him King Shuey. I love Shuey. He's just, and it's so funny because when him and Charlie landed at Longchamp, Shuey's quite a. Like a quiet character, well-composed guy. And he's, there's 22 of us owners. We're all excited. He's sort of trying to, go past. I'm having none of it. Shuey, bring Shuey over. Everyone's asking him everything. We absolutely love it. And I've only ever had two winners. She's perfect. On last Sunday was my 3rd ever turf runner. It was in a Group 3. So yes, the jockey situation is pending. I presume how it works, I'll have a long list of people with, give me their credentials and stuff. And but I'm hoping Shuey can ride her, but yeah.
It's high-class problem stuff, isn't it?
Very much so.
High-class problem stuff.
Yeah, and this is one thing I said to the owners. We were all sat there after the race and we're thinking, OK, right, we'll come back in 4 weeks' time for the French Guineas. The French Oaks will probably suit her over 10 furlongs. I just said, guys, we need to step back and just realise what we're actually talking about here. This doesn't happen. Do you know what I mean? We've got a 50 grand horse that has got a live chance in a French Guineas. All of the guys there, majority, their first ever share in a racehorse. I was like, let's just enjoy this moment. But for me, that was the pressure run because, she'd won on debut, a weakish race. She was 3rd in a really good race at Goodwood, but we didn't know how good she was. And we sat there beforehand and we were saying, OK, Charlie, if we're well beaten, 10 lengths plus, do we go handicap route? That was the big pressure run. So now she's followed it up.
Right. What
pressure off?
Presumably somebody's offered you money for her.
So no official offer has been made, but lots of inquiries have been made.
So what happens if somebody comes along with a big old cheque now?
Well, she obviously you don't have favourites, but she's the apple of my eye.
I know that, Basher. We know how this movie ends.
Yeah. Well, the movie ends. We win the French Guineas, we win the French Oaks, and we'll win something else, and then then we'd look at it. But we all spoke about that as owners out there, and we just said you could sell her for £750,000 and buy 600 grand horses, and you might not ever get one like her. So, listen, you get involved in horse racing for that dream. Why sell up now? Let's ride the wave and see what happens.
Is of course the correct answer. Now, for the moment, thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
Watch live racing now on racingtv.com.